My name is Hazel, and I used to believe peace was something other people had. I thought peace belonged to people whose lives were organized, whose prayers were always answered the way they hoped, whose families were healthy, whose hearts hadn't been broken. I was not one of those people. I was the girl who smiled in public and shattered in private. The girl who said, "I'm fine," while falling apart silently. The girl who whispered prayers at night with tears soaking her pillow, hoping God was listening. This is my story, the story of how I tried to control everything, lost almost everything, and found peace not when life became easier, but when I finally surrendered my worries to God. Morning used to feel like climbing a mountain before I even got out of bed. The alarm would ring, and anxiety would wake up before I did. Bills. Work. Expectations. My father's health. A relationship that wasn't working anymore but hurt too much to let go of. The fear of failure. The fear of being a disappointment. I would sit at the edge of my bed and whisper, "Hazel, you don't get to break down today. Hold it together." Some days I succeeded. Other days, I pretended. One morning, Mom knocked on my door. Her voice was gentle but tired. "Hazel? You'll be late again." I answered, "Yeah. I'm coming." My voice sounded normal. It always did. But inside, I wanted to curl up and just rest from being strong. On the jeepney ride to work, the city moved like it didn't care who was hurting. People laughed, scrolled through phones, stared out windows. I wondered if anyone else felt like they were held together by threads. At work, my coworker Mia leaned over and smiled. "You okay? You look tired again." I automatically replied, "Yeah. Just didn't sleep much." Inside, I wanted to say, "No. I'm not okay. I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. I'm losing myself." But I didn't. I wore strength like makeup, convincing from a distance. The breaking point came quietly, and then all at once. It was raining, the kind of rain that feels heavy, like God Himself is grieving with you. First, my supervisor called me in. He sighed. "Hazel, you used to be one of our most consistent performers. Lately you're distracted, unfocused. Are you dealing with something?" I wanted to scream, "Yes, everything." Instead, I said softly, "I'm sorry. I'll do better." Then my phone vibrated. Mom's message. "Come to the hospital now. It's your dad." The world tilted. The hospital smell, antiseptic and fear, wrapped around me. Machines beeped steadily, but nothing inside me felt steady. Dad looked so small in that bed. I took his hand and whispered, "Hi, Dad. I'm here." He opened his eyes slightly and forced a smile. "My brave girl." I broke. Tears came before words did. "Dad, please get better." He whispered, "Hazel, you worry too much. Give your worries to God." And inside my heart, something snapped and cried back. But I don't know how. Later, in the hallway, Mom tried to be strong, but I saw her trembling. "We just have to pray," she said. I nodded, but in my mind, the questions were screaming. Why is this happening? Why now? What if I lose him? Why is everything falling apart at once? That night, I went into the empty hospital chapel. No choir. No music. Just dim light and an old wooden cross. I sat at the back pew, dropped my head into my hands, and whispered, not a formal prayer, but a cry. "God, where are you? I'm doing everything I can. I'm trying to be faithful. I obey. I pray. But I'm tired. I'm so tired. Why won't you fix this?" Silence answered. Not angering silence, but heavy silence. And my worry screamed louder than my faith. I was still trying to control everything. Outcomes. Timing. People's choices. The future. I wanted guarantees, not trust. I wanted answers, not surrender. And I was breaking under the weight of it. The turning point didn't happen with lightning or miracles. It happened softly, like a whisper I almost missed. It was early morning in the hospital. The sky outside the window was barely light, the soft blue before sunrise. Dad was sleeping peacefully, even with all those tubes and machines. My hands trembled again, the familiar shaking of anxious thoughts. A nurse passed by, older, calm, eyes full of something I didn't have. She paused and gently asked, "No sleep?" I shook my head. She said kindly, "We do our best. God does the rest. Peace comes when we learn the difference." She smiled and walked away, but her words stayed. Peace comes when we learn the difference. For the first time, I stopped talking at God. I simply sat with him. No bargaining. No rehearsed prayers. No trying to sound faithful. Just me, exhausted, honest. And then I prayed like this. God, I don't know how to do this anymore. I can't carry my dad's health, my job, my future, my fears. I surrender. I give you the things I can't control. I give you my worry. I give you my fear. I don't know what will happen, but I choose to trust you, even without answers. I cried, but it wasn't panic anymore. It was release. Like finally breathing after holding my breath for years. Nothing around me changed immediately. But something inside me did. For the first time, my hands opened. Peace didn't mean problems disappeared. Dad didn't jump up healed overnight. Bills didn't vanish. Responsibilities didn't dissolve. But the storm inside me quieted. I returned to work calmer. My supervisor looked at me curiously. "Hazel, you seem lighter." I smiled. I stopped trying to be God. Mia hugged me tightly. "Whatever you did, keep doing it." Dad slowly, so slowly, improved. Each day was a gift, not a guarantee. One afternoon he squeezed my hand and whispered, "You look peaceful, my Hazel." I laughed softly. "I surrendered, Dad." He nodded. "Then you finally learned how to live." And he was right. Surrender didn't mean giving up. It meant trusting the one who loved me more than I loved my own plans. I still prayed, but differently. Not, "God, do what I want." But, "God, I trust you, whatever happens." I walked outside one evening after visiting Dad. The rain had stopped. The streets were wet, reflecting city lights like scattered stars. I whispered, "You were here the whole time, weren't you?" And for the first time in a long time, my heart felt quiet. Not empty. Peaceful. Looking back, I realized something painful but beautiful. I never had control. I only had the illusion of it. And God wasn't asking me to be strong. He was asking me to be surrendered. If you're listening to this and your heart is heavy, if your pillow knows your tears, if you smile in public and fall apart in private, I want to tell you gently, you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Peace doesn't come from fixing everything. Peace comes from trusting the one who holds everything. Tonight, my prayer is simple. God, I place in your hands what I cannot carry in mine. And when worry returns, because it does, I surrender again. Because the God I thought was silent was holding me all along. I wish I could tell you that after I surrendered my worries to God once, everything became easy. But peace is not a button you press. It is a relationship you return to, again and again. Life kept moving forward. Dad was stable, but still fragile. Work was still work. Responsibilities still waited for me every morning, like a pile of unopened letters. And one evening, as I sat by the window listening to distant traffic, worry knocked on my heart again. Not loudly this time. Softly. Sneaky. Like a familiar friend I was supposed to stop seeing. The thought whispered. What if it all falls apart again? And just like that, anxiety tried to reclaim old territory. I sighed and said to myself, Hazel, surrender is not something you do once. It's something you live. There was a night when Dad suddenly had trouble breathing again. The monitor alarms beeped, nurses rushed in, and for a moment, my heart shattered just like before. Old worries flooded back like a storm breaking through a window I forgot to lock. I heard my own voice shaking as I whispered, God, please, not again. Mom looked at me with watery eyes. Hazel, pray. I wanted to say, I am praying. I'm just scared. But instead, I held her hand and we stood there in silence, two hearts beating through fear. The doctor finally came out and said, He's okay. Just a scare. We stabilized him. Relief washed over me so fast I had to sit down. And right there in that hospital hallway, I realized something important. Peace is not the absence of fear. Peace is choosing trust while your hands are still shaking. That night, I didn't try to sound holy. I didn't try to impress heaven. I just prayed like a daughter talking to a father who already knew my heart. God. I'm still learning. I still worry. But I'm not running from you anymore. I'm running to you, even with my fear. And I felt it again. Not fireworks. Not visions. Just presence. A quiet assurance that said, You're not alone. A few days later, Dad looked at me with tired but joyful eyes. Hazel, come here. I leaned closer. Yes, Dad? He smiled. You've grown. Not just older, deeper. I can see it. I laughed softly. I'm still scared, Dad. He squeezed my hand. Courage is not being unafraid. Courage is trusting God while afraid. His words didn't erase my worries. They reframed them. Life gently shifted. I noticed small miracles. Laughter returning to our house. Sunlight through hospital windows feeling warm instead of harsh. Coworkers saying, You seem different, Hazel. Mia hugged me one afternoon and said, Whatever you've been going through, it's making you glow. I smiled. It's not me. I finally stopped trying to run my own universe. She laughed. Teach me how. And for the first time, I shared my story out loud. How surrender didn't make me weaker, it freed me from pretending to be strong alone. There came a quiet morning when I went back to the same hospital chapel. I sat in the same wooden pew. Same cross. Same silence. But a different me. I whispered. God, whether my life looks how I planned or not, I choose you. Not because I understood everything. Not because I knew the ending. But because I finally trusted the author. I placed my plans, my fears, my unanswered questions, into his hands again. And again. And again. Because surrender is not a single moment. It is a rhythm. A daily release. I used to believe that surrender meant losing. Now I'm learning, it's where real strength is born. The weeks after my prayer in the hospital chapel felt different. Not easier. Just different. There was a quietness in my heart I hadn't felt before, like the storm inside me had finally grown tired of screaming. Mom sat beside Dad's hospital bed, brushing his hair back gently. She whispered, Hazel, make sure you rest too. I smiled a little and answered. Don't worry, Mom. I'm okay. But inside, I confessed to God. Lord. I'm not okay. But I know you're here. Dad opened his eyes slowly. Hey, Hazel, he whispered. His voice was softer than I remembered. Hey, Dad, I answered, forcing brightness into my words. He smiled faintly. You always tried to carry the world. He paused for breath. You don't have to anymore. Those words landed deeper than he could have known. I didn't have to carry everything. I didn't have to control outcomes. Fix everyone. Pretend I wasn't afraid. That night at home, I cried again, but it was different. It wasn't panic. It was release. I said aloud into the quiet room, God, I still don't know what will happen. I still don't understand your timing. But I trust you more than I trust my fear. The next morning, I walked outside before sunrise. The sky was painted with soft pink and gold light. I whispered, even the sky trusts you enough to wait for the sun. Later that week, my friend Mara hugged me tightly. She said, Hazel, you sound lighter. You sound peaceful. I laughed through grateful tears. Peace, I said, didn't come when life got better. It came when I stopped fighting God. There were still long hospital nights. There were still tears. There were still unknowns. But worry no longer owned me. Surrender had become my strength. And every time fear whispered, what if? Faith gently answered. Even then, God will be there. Dad squeezed my hand one evening and said, I'm proud of you, Hazel. He smiled. For finally letting God be God. And in that moment, I realized something. Peace doesn't come when everything is fixed. Peace comes when your heart finally rests in His hands. And mine had. This is the part of the story I never expected to tell. The days ahead didn't suddenly become perfect. Bills still came. Test results still scared us. Life still felt fragile, like glass in trembling hands. But I was different now. One evening, after a particularly hard day, I walked into the hospital room and saw Dad staring out the window. The sunset poured warm light across his face. He said quietly, Hazel, come here. I sat beside him and he whispered, do you remember when you were little and you were afraid of the dark? I laughed softly. I still don't like it. He squeezed my hand. You'd grab my arm and say, as long as you're here, I'm not scared. I felt tears fill my eyes. He looked at me, calm, gentle. That's what faith is, Hazel. You still walk through the dark. But you're not alone. That night, fear tried to return. It always does. What if you lose him? Fear whispered. What if everything falls apart? I closed my eyes and prayed. God, I don't know the ending of this chapter. But I know you are already there. And peace wrapped around me again. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just steady, like a strong hand holding mine. Days turned into weeks. Some days Dad laughed. Some days he slept more than he spoke. Some days we prayed in silence because words were too small. Mom broke down in the hallway one afternoon. She cried, I don't think I'm strong enough. I wrapped my arms around her and said softly, we don't have to be strong enough. We just have to stay in God's hands. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to control everything. I wasn't bargaining with God. I simply said, over and over, Lord, your will, your time, your way. And I meant it. Surrender didn't make me weaker. It made me free. My story isn't about everything turning out perfectly. It's about finding peace even when I didn't get all the answers. Some prayers were answered the way I hoped. Some weren't. But God was faithful in all of it. I used to think peace meant the storm stopped. Now I know. Peace is God sitting beside you in the storm, whispering, I'm here. I won't leave. If you're listening to this, maybe you're tired too. Maybe you've carried fear, guilt, pressure, expectations, and pain for so long your soul feels bruised. Maybe you've said the same words I did in the hospital chapel. God, I'm scared. Why won't you fix this? I can't promise easy answers. But I can tell you this. The moment you stop fighting alone, the moment you stop pretending you're in control, and you finally whisper, God, I surrender this. Something sacred happens. Not always instant miracles. But peace. Real peace. Quiet peace. Lasting peace. The kind that lets you sleep again. The kind that lets you breathe again. The kind that reminds you. You were never meant to carry everything by yourself. Your heart, your future, your worries. They are safest in His hands. And that is where I leave mine now. If my story touched your heart, stay with me for a moment. There are people out there, just like you and me, holding silent battles no one sees. If this gave you hope, like this video so more people can hear it. Share it with someone who feels overwhelmed right now. Subscribe and join me as we keep walking, surrendering, and finding peace together. And remember, you are not alone. God is closer than your next breath. Let Him carry what you can't anymore.